Unacceptable.
Hey, Stinky!
Hi, babies! Happy Sunday! On what it is, May 25th. Good to have you. It is almost 7 minutes past the moment when I press the go live button, which means, once again, it is coincidentally arbitrarily the time that I decided to run our first top of the hour 3-minute ad break that tells the pre-roll ads to go on, scoot, and get for those newcomers and those unsubscribed. It gives us an hour of playtime together and 3 additional minutes for you to assess and achieve maximum co's, mamas. So I'll be pushing that button soon. I'll see you on the other side of those ads. And we'll kick it off promptly. See you soon. Mwah. we do it? Can we wake up? We're at grandma. I think we can. I think we can. Wake up. We're at grandma's. Oh my god, hi. I missed y'all. Especially last night. I'm thrown off my motherfucking game. I didn't cook anything last night. It was kind of a nice reprieve not to cook anything last night, to be honest. Still, when you get used to doing a thing almost every Saturday for like the last year and a half, this feels off when you gotta change your plans, you know? You know? Maybe you don't know. Maybe your life is so highly dynamic and highly fluid, you don't get used to anything. What's that like? I messed with my desktop audio options here, and I think it's too loud. I think everything's too loud, except me. I think I'm not loud enough. I'm never loud enough. I'm enough. I'm not loud enough. I should be fine now. Yeah, the audio shouldn't be drowning me out. Have headphones on and shit sounds good. So what I've noticed is anybody watching on mobile, when they do that, assuming you are watching on mobile, it tends to like auto level out a lot of sound, which is nice. Because like more than half of a Twitch viewership watches on their phone, so that works out. You're on computer too? Okay, neat. I like that. That gives me a lot more reassurance. Here I can never tell. I probably ought to stream with headphones on and get a better sense of the situation, but I don't wanna.
You're doing amazing, sweetie.
Thank you. As are you, Heather friend. Welcome in. Heather, I expected to see you on Wednesday and I completely forgot. You on break. At least I think you're on break. Am I right about that? I think she on break. Guys, gals, non-binary pals, I think Heather's on break. Which gives you all the opportunity to make sure you're following her in the interim.
She was a fairy.
I think Heather's on summer break. She'll be back. Unless I'm wrong, and she'll be back sooner, which would be swell. I took a week off. Summer break, 1 week. You got... I don't know, I thought it was time to move. You also inspired me to check out High Tea, which apparently I needed a reservation for today. I missed that part. What I did prior to stream, so I went to a childhood favorite place. I talk about reminiscence therapy a good bit. Retro gaming has a direct tie-in to all things reminiscence therapy for me. But so do places, so do people, so do events, so does basically anything that you can perceive with your senses that you enjoyed at fill-in-the-blank time in your life. And one of these spaces that I went to today, I haven't set foot in, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And it seems like it's one of those spaces that I find like absolutely magical, but also I hold it in such high regard that I also don't go there very often, which is kind of paradoxical, I guess. But all the same, I like the place. I mean, we went there. It's a massive antique mall that we have here in Fort Worth. And they have this, I know this is pretty common for a lot of antique malls, but there's a cozy tea room kind of in the middle of the entire building, and it just feels hidden. And the name is a little on the nose. It's called the restaurant, the tea room within the antique mall. It's called the Secret Garden, and it secrets out. Secrets out, bitches. It's there. It's still there. The food is about exactly as I remembered. It's just a soup and sandwich kind of place, you know, nothing real fancy. Don't gotta crest your pinkies unless that's your standard. But it's just a soup and sandwich kind of place. You can get a croissant if you want. They got like quiche. If you like quiche, if you like egg pie, they got quiche and cookies. But I found out today they do high tea, but you can't just sit down and say, oh yes, I would like the high tea tray set up, please, and your cutest, most ornamental, decorative pot brought out to me, if you would, singularly for me. They just, you gotta schedule that. They gotta prepare. They gotta have time to prepare. We saw people getting the service though. It looked cute as shit. You got to spill the tea emote. See, that's twice I get to be jealous of your emote collection there. Just added to the bouquet. Added the bouquet. I want to share this place though. I'll post some photos later in the Discord. I did share a few pieces of the really that amongst all of amidst a place that is just like a swell of rarities. I posted what I thought really stood out in the Discord today, like the speaker box Ronald McDonald and that I think like paper mache face. Heather, you would have been so impressed with the tea sets that they had out. I wanted to take pictures of them, but I didn't really have consent from people around me to like, you know, hey, pose real quick. I could have asked. I should have asked. I regret not getting that for us. Tea sets were very cute. For what it was, the food was just excellent for what it was. I had the Waldorf chicken salad sandwich, and kind of a chunky tomato soup. I think it was a cream base, so it kind of got me. Kind of got me a little bit. Worth it. Why we went though, like rhyme, reason, rationale, why we went though is because, like so many good things, like so many happy memories, they're meant to be transient, and in this case, to be determined, to be announced, but this place is gonna get fucking bulldozed eventually to make room for more gentrification. Yay! It's in the Arts District, or at least this place is like on the anchor end of the Arts District, and there's been a lot of entertainment tourism type of I don't know, relevant objects there. Hotels, Dickies Arena, like adjacent to the already kind of locally infamous stock show rodeo area, along with, yes, our stock show and rodeo area is like completely blended with our arts district. It's really kind of cool, actually. Also, our arts district just kind of bangs. I love that entire area. But as we go south, you get towards the highway, and towards the highway is where this place is, and we don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to be dozed, and then in its place is going to be like 12-story boutique apartments and residential, I don't know, I guess bougie living and restaurants and more things like we already have, you know. I wonder if you could get hypnotized into liking tea. I don't know. See, that I haven't seen like a wealth of evidence to support that like hypnosis is really effective on like, say like it's used for patients if they want to curb smoking, you know, and for some it is effective, some it isn't. And the data is not like super consistent on that. But it's funny, like in college, I had one of my professors told me that while he had a client under therapy, and this kind of ties into like why placebos work and how the body can respond to suggestibility and everything else down to like our physiology. But he had a client convinced under hypnosis that the pen that he was about to touch his arm with was piping hot. Like, we convinced the client under hypnosis, and there was consent for all of this, but convinced the client under hypnosis that this pen was piping hot. He was going to place it on the skin, but nothing was going to happen. But after pressing it on his skin and taking it away, there was like a small histamine reaction, similar to what would happen if he were actually burned. And I know all of that sounds like kind of shady, and I wasn't in a place to disbelieve that, but stranger things have happened. For that matter, no real injury was like, he gave us like the full debrief, like no real injury was sustained to the client. He pulled them out and explained to them exactly what had happened. But hypnosis is used as fanciful and like snake oil as that may sound. It's still a type of therapy modality that's used, just not broadly, for a lot of reasons. But for like smoking cessation and I think some other like substance use disorders, it's probably worth trying for some. Oh my god, the pop-up ads on this article are disastrous. It's making me not want to share. I'm sharing something like local news, like let me make the entirety of Twitch care about like a local news thing, but it's also one of those things like if you come to my neck of the woods, I would want you to see this place just because it's kind of special. If you like coffee, start with black tea and cream and sugar. Yeah, I don't know. Is Sultry much of a coffee drinker? That's the other thing. Like, I don't know if you're missing tea that much to require hypnosis just to try it, you know? Like, a lot of tea really fucks, but, you know, you like what you like. I know you've mentioned before, like, you struggle with drinking just plain water. And so, like, the idea there is, like, how do you make water more exciting to drink? Like, maybe a couple slices of cucumber and some, I don't know, rosemary sprigs or something to really cute it up. But outside of that, a good old cup of brown will get you by, and keep the visits to the restroom higher frequency, maybe.
In our Boomtown series, we're tracking the
Boomtown
growth in North Texas. Fort Worth City
segments
Council just
Boomtown.
approved the building of a new hotel, homes, and businesses right near Dickey's Arena. But as Adriana D'Alba explains, the growth comes at the cost of a local icon.
Icon.
If you've driven past it, you know it.
Let's go look.
And for 3 decades,
Didn't Grandma
It really
and
is a
Grandpa have
behemoth.
that picture where it's like bubbled?
Yes,
generations
look,
have loved it.
because I can appreciate a lot of this stuff.
3 generations
But it's the real thing.
visit the Montgomery Street Antique Mall in Fort Worth often.
Lately, about every
Every
week.
week. This is too cool.
They going in
Walking
every
through aisles
week.
of antique treasures
See, I like these little storybook dolls. I've got a couple.
is a trip down memory lane.
So you got a
for
couple
Grandma
storybook
Irene.
dolls? Hell yeah,
It makes me
mama.
glad that I was born in the era that I was.
It has meant a lot. To
That
so
is
many.
okay. That is one of the more special things about going to a place like this. If you can tolerate it, going with someone in your family, sibling, just fill in the blank, loved one, or say just, I guess, to add some poetry to it. Go there with someone from another generation, because tying this back to like reminiscence therapy, it is a very excitatory experience to see them connect with all of these objects and light up and have a story about it. Because like going there with my mom today, she had a story behind hundreds of things there and saying like, oh, I remember my great twin aunt used to have this crib or these dolls, and oh, my mother has these had these like recalled, probably dangerously filled with lead, you know, cobalt glassware, and like all the stuff that we saw. Coolest thing we saw today was like a crank, before it was RCA, I forget the name of it, before it was RCA, it was like a crank record player, and really cool. Like the sound speaker in that was basically wooden. You open up the cabinets to expand the sound. That was the coolest thing I saw today.
The treasured pastime of antiquing here
It's been around since I was a kid in the 80s.
I took a picture of that guy
Just
today.
couldn't imagine anything else here at Montgomery Street Antique Mall.
as Fort Worth booms, something new will take its place on this bustling corner of I-30 and
It's not
Montgomery
exactly the
Street. A
sexiest building
12-story
from the
hotel,
exterior, like, I
shops,
get
and
it.
A residential building. Fort Worth City
I mean, that
Council
was-
members
you saw
eventual
it.
building. Fort Worth
It's
City Council Montgomery
bright
Street.
orange.
A 12-story hotel, shops,
And we're getting a 12-story hotel and shops. Yay, isn't that fun? I get it. The building ain't sexy from the exterior. Questionable sex appeal on the inside too. Also get that, but it's a cave of wonders.
and a
so
residential
many.
building. Fort Worth City Council members approved the zoning case this week.
I'm really excited about this project.
A project
Boo.
that will bring a place to stay near Dickey's Arena.
They're old.
The owners of the antique mall haven't said when
You get a chance to visit before
I
it's
think it's
demolished. It's worth
heartbreaking,
spending.
and
I don't know. You
hope
can spend
that
like 3 or
the
4 hours in
vendors
here,
that
plus
have
time for tea.
Their little areas will relocate.
Ooh, I wonder. They didn't say
That
anything
one
about the
right there,
restaurant.
like that. Yeah, we had.
Why didn't y'all
those.
say anything
For
about the
now,
restaurant?
They'll browse and bond.
Because they don't care.
Yeah.
I'll highlight the rest. I'll highlight the
While they
restaurant. I'll get a
still
feature on
can.
that.
Well, you
I don't know. Who just comes in and gets that? I don't know.
In Fort Worth, I'm Adriana Down.
In Fort Worth. That's how we say it. That's totally how we say it. Tea room. Secret Garden Restaurant. There you go. With their non-secure site. I don't think that's the website that I was at earlier. Maybe it is. I guess it is the same. Spring. Well, you get the point. I shared everything on Discord. It's a place you can go to. There's photos of it. It's adorable. this doesn't want to show, Russell Rogers, re-upload your photo, would you? Is that showing? There you go. There's one of the high tea trays with the snacking sandwiches and tasty pastries, whipped cream and fruit. There you go. It's there doling out. Heather, was this pretty similar to what you went out for the other day at that castle or whatever it was? Because that looked cool as shit. I don't know, the part of the allure to this is sort of the build-up that you kind of have to earn your way to the restaurant. You have to weave through a few aisles of very easily distractible, interactable objects, right? It's trying to find the sound amidst the noise, so to speak. Like, you gotta weave through a lot of traffic before you get to the secret garden tea room. But there it is. That was lunch today, so special lunch. That's pretty similar to what I have, and you get a cute little pink muffin with it. Cute little hospital pink muffin to go with it. It's way tastier than it looks. Any old hay. That's where I was before here. On the docket today, here in a few minutes, I'm going to be bringing on a friend, an IRL friend, who's an LMFT, which that means legal motherfucking therapist, as far as you know. Legal motherfucking therapist, right? LMFT, licensed marriage family therapist. As if you're familiar with like LPC, licensed psychologist, licensed clinical social worker, it's another license that the State Department of Health and Human Services recognizes as someone who put in a hell of a lot of work to earn those letters. Just ahead of it, and that's her, the Dob My Knob, who I've been told I can just call Kate. and maybe she'll fire up a stream of her own one of these days. We'll call this practice. If you want to preemptively follow. Oh, the ads on these are gross. Like, I get it. They have to pay for, like, hosting fees and everything else. Grab that bag or whatever. I can't be too critical about where these places go because I can't always pay to have access to, like, medical journals that these places are citing and summarizing. But all the same, first thing I wanted to run through, and then we'll bring Kate on. I've got a few things, actually, but these may be worth just returning to after a little bitty while, since I started a little bit later today. First thing, people with lower cognitive ability more likely to fall for pseudo-profound bullshit, which is another example of, for a lot of us, probably, reinforcing a little cognitive bias, which can be risky. We don't typically want to reinforce cognitive bias. We want to maintain tools and ability to pause and check in to not reaffirm what we already believe, because sometimes we need to be ready for information that disagrees with what we already believe so that we can be more likely to change our minds and less resistant to changing our minds. In this case, let's see how the text is appearing here. Tiny. It's appearing tiny. We can fix that. We can rebuild it. We can make it better. Not by much, but marginally. There you go. You can see some of it now. So the new meta-analysis published in Applied Cognitive Psychology offers insight into why some people are more likely than others to be taken in by pseudo-profound statements, sentences that sound deep and meaningful, but are essentially meaningless. And in the mental health world, since the internet loves latching on to clinical sounding verbiage and then completely bastardizing it and repurposing it for their own selfish use, the term for today is intellectualization, which intellectualization is just a $5 word for saying a lot of goddamn nothing. And it's usually used to create distance versus connection in a conversation. So if you're challenging somebody to change and then they fill the air with every single granular reason why they shouldn't do a thing that they know is good for them, and they've not really made a lot of progress towards rationalizing why that would be good for them to make that change, it's probably a good example of intellectualization. Saying a lot of nothing that is meaningful to them, but essentially meaningless, immeasurable. A study found that receptivity to this type of language is more common among individuals with lower cognitive abilities, which sounds very crude, and greater faith in intuition. nothing against going with your gut. It's also linked to stronger belief in the paranormal, conspiracy theories, and religion. Pseudo-profound bullshit refers to statements that appear meaningful but don't actually convey any real substance. These phrases are often grammatically correct and filled with abstract inspirational words, but upon closer examination, they lack any concrete, verifiable content. I would say those who get caught up in the manosphere, probably prone, I wouldn't say probably, we've heard it, prone to that type of attractive rhetoric that when you dig down the substance is effectively meaningless. But there are a lot of grifters in the wellness industry. There's a lot of grifters in like the Jordan Petersons and even the Joe Rogans, who may inadvertently bring on people and endorse and platform very problematic people, tethered to the same type of rhetoric. And for the audience, usually blissfully unaware of how harmful it is. Those who proselytize, evangelize, have a flock, by which I mean those who are responsible for managing their butts in the pews, those who are religiously affiliated and potentially influential, also high in the running to be at risk of bearing responsibility for not perpetuating bullshit. And it's not all bad, right? I don't speak in overgeneralizations as much as I can recognize the need to catch that. Also, hi, OTG, welcome in. Good to see you. Happy Sunday to you, partner. Happy to have you. The sentence, for example, the sentence, hidden meaning transforms unparalleled abstract beauty. Might sound insightful, but it doesn't say anything actually meaningful. Hidden meaning transforms unparalleled abstract beauty. The term gained attention after a 2015 study by Gordon Pennycook. Oh, it's Pennycook. I'm only human. And I was thinking about cock. And colleagues, which found that some people consistently rate such statements as profound, even though they were generated using random buzzwords. Lewis Carroll, eat your heart out. Since then, researchers have become increasingly interested in what makes someone more susceptible to these kinds of statements. And in an age of information overload, distinguishing truth from nonsense is more important than ever. Pseudo-profound bullshit may seem harmless on the surface, but it can shape people's beliefs in ways that promote misinformation, influence political attitudes, and even affect health behaviors. Think of the wellness influencer who doesn't really substantiate their claims, qualify their comments, cite their sources, but are just more motivated by clicks than the harm they're doing for, say, your loved one and the family who's engaging with that, but not going to, say, therapy that they desperately need. I can just Bible quote my way through cognitive dissonance. That's a thing that a lot of us struggle with, right? Or at least their families. To better understand who is more likely to fall for this, the researchers conducted a meta-analysis. Meta, of course, in this case means data upon data, a statistical technique that combines the results of multiple studies to identify patterns across a larger body of evidence. They analyzed 46 separate experiments drawn from 26 articles published between 2015 and 2023. The studies included more than 13,600 participants in total, with most of the data coming from Canada and the United States. Yeah, that's here. For now. All of the included studies used variations of the bullshit receptivity scale. I would also encourage anybody to read a very short book called On Bullshit, which presents people with the meaningless but syntactically correct statements and asks them to rate how profound they find each one. I kind of want to know more about this too. Thank you, Penny Cook. Oh, I can't actually see it. Want an example? Oh, here we go. We can look at it. Egads, we can look at it. Let me zoom in, and then maybe I can move it over. Will it let me scoot it? Will it let me scoot it? Maybe, maybe, maybe. Scoot, scoot, scoot. Well, here, I'm going to copy and paste that here in case anybody wants to play with that later. It just means I get to resize my window again. This will be fun to look through. This is a nice side note for the for the article. I'll just cover myself up. Alright, you get a sense of what's going on there. We're interested in how people experience the profound. Below are a series of statements taken from relevant websites. Please read each statement and take a moment to think about what it might mean. Then please rate how profound you think it is. Profound means of deep meaning, great and broadly inclusive significance. And it looks like they're gonna score this on like a Likert scale. Not at all profound, somewhat profound, fairly profound, definitely profound, and 5 meaning very profound. And look, it's the statement we just heard from the article. Hidden meaning transforms unparalleled abstract beauty. How would you rate that? The next one, good health imparts reality to subtle creativity. It doesn't really say much of anything either. Of course, now we've been suggested, the body of knowledge, to have a different posture and attitude about these known statements. Our approach to this data has thus been corrupted because now we already know about what the intended goal of collecting this is. Good health imparts reality to subtle creativity. The next one, wholeness quiets infinite phenomena. Stitch that on a pillow. Wholeness quiets infinite phenomena. Sounds important. The future explains irrational facts. Imagination is inside exponential wow. Imagination is inside exponential space-time events. I mean, that does sound like you could unpack some big ideas from that, but really... And so on. Prototypically profound quotations. Your teacher can open the door, but you must enter by yourself. The creative child is the child who survived. Oh, the creative adult is the child who survived. See, not even necessarily. That's an overgeneralization, isn't it? And not uniquely accurate. Creativity isn't strictly tied to adversity. You know, a lot of famous creative people have experienced that in addition to, say, like mood disorders. Anyway, back to the article. I'll zip through this and then we can bring Kate on. They used that and more to qualify the data. Researchers then looked at how responses on this scale were related to... Fix that again. There we go. Looked at responses on this scale that were related to other variables such as cognitive reflection, verbal intelligence, belief systems, and thinking styles. The analysis revealed a consistent pattern. People who scored higher in receptivity to pseudo-profound bullshit were more likely to believe in conspiracy theories, religious and paranormal claims, and had greater faith in intuition. These individuals tended to score lower on measures of cognitive reflection, verbal intelligence, and mathematical ability. Cognitive reflection, which refers to the ability to override intuitive but correct answers in favor of more deliberate reasoning, showed the strongest negative correlation with bullshit receptivity. In other words, people who are more receptive and analytical are less likely to fall for nonsense that sounds deep. Verbal intelligence and arithmetic skills also showed negative correlations, although these effects were somewhat smaller. On the other hand, conversely, individuals who express stronger intuitive thinking tendencies, such as relying on gut feelings, were more likely to find pseudo-profound statements meaningful. They also found mundane or motivational quotes more profound. These findings support the idea that some people have a general tendency to see depth and wisdom in all kinds of statements, regardless of their actual content. I really hope that doesn't remind you of too many people in your life. Interestingly, people who were more prone to ontological confusion, such as believing that thoughts can influence physical objects, are related to pseudo-profound statements as more meaningful. This suggests that a blurry distinction between abstract and concrete concepts might play a role in how people assess meaning. The researchers found the relationships were generally consistent across the studies, but the strengths of the effects varied. One of the most robust findings was a link between bullshit receptivity and motivational quotes. People who were more receptive to pseudo-profound bullshit were more likely to find depth in simple, inspirational phrases, even if the phrases lacked substance. Although the pairings paint a fairly consistent picture, the authors cautioned the data comes with some limitations, and that's always worth acknowledging in like any body of data that you're seeing. If they don't acknowledge their weaknesses and how they could have made the data more valid and substantive and qualifiable, first of all, that's just research methods protocol kind of 101. But if you don't see that acknowledgement, I would already question the overall quality of that work. Another limitation involves the measurement tools themselves. While widely used, the bullshit receptivity scale and cognitive reflection test have been criticized for their reliability and for overlapping with other cognitive traits, such as numeracy. These concerns suggest that the future research should aim to refine these tools and develop more precise ways to assess how people process ambiguous or misleading information. I would also take into consideration the, neurodiverse population, how that any sort of verbiage is interpreted. Because some of these tests are developed with a small body of persons and then used kind of broadly when applied for others to, generate the data later. The authors caution data can come with some limitations. Most of the other studies were conducted in Western countries, primarily US and Canada, which means that the results might not generalize to other cultural contexts. Additionally, the studies used slightly different versions of the bullshit receptivity measure, which could introduce inconsistencies. I think the rhetorical goal is the same there, but all the same. Gets the wheels turning a little bit. I'm trying to remember the author's name on bullshit. A friend of mine gave me his copy of this a long time ago. This was like a college professor's lecture that he just printed into a book, and you can read it in 45 minutes. The whole text may be here. It's tiny, but it's called On Bullshit. Harry Frankfurt. And it's like an entire diatribe breaking down bullshit. And it uses the word bullshit enough to where if you feel a little squishy about recommending that for anybody because they might feel weird about hearing what is a word of curse repeatedly, it happens enough to where it's the barb is taken out. Bullshit is then used more or less as a academic verbiage at that point. But the book look like it. It's tiny. I don't know where my copy is, but it's tiny. Good ideas unpacked in there too. It helps kind of break down the origins of bullshit rhetoric, how to recognize it, how to catch oneself when being at risk of propagating it. I think that was the overall goal, outside of just writing something for fun. If you want some food for thought for later. What do we think? Kate, are you ready to join up? I can buzz you in. Let's freaking go! Okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna hide this. And where is the browser source that I used earlier? Okay, it was called Discord Kate. Hopefully the music is good enough where it's not gonna drown out either of us. And we'll find out soon if we're gonna have an echo, because I don't want to wear headphones. I've got an NVIDIA plug-in to where it should block out other voices, but we'll see. We'll see. It exists. Here it is. Okay. And I'm gonna call you. Hopefully I don't lose my camera on this one.
Hey.
Hello. Well, hi. Okay, I think I need to pop this out. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Good.
Can you all hear me?
I think they can.
I'm trying to get my camera on. It's not letting me.
I could see you.
Oh, okay.
Looked like it was working. Okay, that's not quite what I want. Can definitely hear you. Okay, let me reset this. I added the browser source earlier straight away and it worked immediately. What's the problem now? What's your deal, OBS? All right. I can fix it.
Technology.
Okay, window capture. Select a window source to capture. I can do internet. Okay, I think I have to have that up and active and then it will recognize it. Oh, I did lose your video. I see what's going on there. It says the camera is sitting at a low frame rate, may be caused by high system load. Well, that ain't on me.
Uh-oh.
I think I
That's
can reset
on me.
this.
I'm on my
no,
phone.
I can totally see you though. I think what I need to do is get rid of that and focus on you. I had you and then I lost you.
Let's see.
Back.
We good now?
Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Okay.
Right, sweet.
No. Well, if this doesn't work, I'll just share my left window and then that will work immediately. It's what we did in the test call. Ain't working now. Oh, wait. I think... Boom! You have my entire screen. All right, it's your stream now. Take it over. Go to work.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Hi, everyone. How are y'all doing this fine Sunday? I don't think I'll be able to see the chats.
I can get you up.
Okay.
I've got you floating over here on my desk. Try and tidy this up.
We'll do it live. Yeah.
I do have that sound alert.
Fuck it, we'll do it live. It's...
Oh, hell, bells, it done froze on you.
Oh, Lord.
It may just be, it may be a buggy, maybe a buggy-wuggy day.
That's
Could be my bandwidth, too.
I can hear you, and I'm on, so I have Discord on in the background for the call, and I'm on Twitch to see the chats.
Okay.
So I can't see any video, but that's fine. I got my ears.
You got your ears.
My ears be working.
Let's see. I'm gonna put some text here so people know what's going on. Seeing text. Ooh, there's a bunch to change. There's a bunch to change here.
We do need ears. They are useful. Indeed.
Let's see. Is that the text I want to use? Ah, here we go. Disembodied voice. The disembodied voice of the day.
Ooh.
AKA Aka.
Okay. Excuse me. Oh my God.
No.
All right, yo, I'm gonna be like straight immediately. I've got IBS. So I'm gonna.
Feral.
I'm just my whole
Similarly,
life.
that's why I was like 30 minutes late.
Oh my God, dude. Some days it just be hidden. So yeah, I may. Sometimes I hiccup, and I do be burping. So I'm just gonna.
That's all right.
That's how I was made.
Some of us get hot girl tummy too easy.
Hot girl tummy, constantly.
I'm trying to reset your video to bring you back up here, but I may stick with this for a while until I see that reset.
Totally
the
fine.
video I had froze on you, and it hasn't.
Oh, no.
It hasn't done unfrozed. I was thinking about it.
I'm sure it froze on a super lovely screenshot of me.
You were, I think you were doing a smile and a wink.
Excellent.
Oh, we'll let that figure itself out. But yeah, thank you for being here. I need to give you a proper introduction, y'all. This is one of my IRL friends. Again, they are a licensed marriage and family therapist in private practice and a real deal Holyfield mental health professional.
Thank you.
Yeah. I've wanted to, before I reached out to you, I actually wanted to bring you on a while ago, and just the neurodivergent idea kept, popping and poofing.
Oh my God.
So I
I know
remember to
that
reach out
feel.
early, but
hard. No, you are totally, I get it. I get it. I would forget my head if it was not screwed into my spine. So
Rude.
I'm all about the neurodivergent mind. Cause I'd be there.
We be there.
It just be like that sometimes, you know?
Let's see what there's so much to, I mean, we can go like any
There
direction
is.
here. Like what topic du jour? I guess I could focus on like one thing and branch away. Y'all, we came with
Yeah,
a strong game plan today.
Yeah, no, you're fine. So yeah, so I'll just kind of do the little spiel I do with like kind of new peeps, new clients. So I'm a licensed and okay, let me try that again. Cool. I messed up my intro. Start over. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist associate. So what the associate part means is I went to grad school, I passed comps, I graduated, I passed my licensure exam, and what I am doing now and have been doing since early 2020 is gathering a casual additional 3,000 hours. Half are direct client hours. So what that means is I see a client face to face. I have to get 1,500 of those. And I've got about 300 left. So I can
You on
see
your
the
way.
light. I can see the light. I am so close. I'm really hoping by the end of this calendar year, I could be fully licensed. So really the only difference between me and a fully licensed therapist is obviously fully licensed therapist has a bit more experience. And since I'm still an associate, I go to counseling supervision about once a week. And that's where I'm just able to ask my supervisor about, any sort of ethical dilemmas or, difficult cases or conditions that I'm not as familiar with or not as well trained on. It's really just a time for me to make sure that I'm offering the best care that I can. So,
I think that's
So-
always worth highlighting for anybody who doesn't know how hard it is to be a therapist. For anybody from the outside in who just doesn't know, just the first thing about how somebody gets those letters behind their name, because it's like it's the same thing for a clinical social worker. It's 3,000 hours and then hundreds of hours of supervision.
Absolutely. Yep. It is hard work. And it's
that's after
actually
grad school, yeah.
something I really didn't even know about what was to come. I was in my second to last semester in practicum, and I was under the impression that once I graduated, it was like, cool, I can start practicing. And it's like, no, yeah, you can start practicing once you take the licensure exam. Oh, and then after you take the licensure exam, you're technically not fully licensed yet. You get to do 3,000 more hours. And then and so I was like, oh, damn. All right. But I said, this is still what I want to do. So
Right. That's the demoralization check-in. Like, you sure you about this?
You're like, oh shit. Like, okay. Oh, that's a little bit more than I didn't see that in the brochure, but that is fine. It's like teachers getting their credential and then it's like, oh, but you have to clear. Yeah.
It really is,
Exactly.
yeah. So like why you would see LPCS after their name or LCSW.
Yes.
Well, same thing.
So
It just indicates that they're. No, I think I've got that backwards. The S would indicate that they're a supervisor versus being supervised.
Correct.
They would be an LM licensed masters versus clinical before they get the LC.
Yep. Exactly.
But they have to. You have to volunteer that. Like ethically, if you're going to be under somebody's license, meaning a supervisor, billing insurance and processing claims, like you have to volunteer where you are with that.
Yes.
And
Yep.
disclose that.
That was a new little that was a new rule they added, the Texas Behavioral Health Council. So anytime I advertise myself, whether it's Psychology Today or Instagram or through email, I sign my name and then I do LMFT associate, and then right under, I have to say, under the supervision of Dr. Misty Sparks, LMFT-S. So that's everywhere right now, which is fine. I mean, I was just like, it's a new rule, and I want to follow the rules because I want to keep my license. So I'll do
stay
it.
in good standing. Yeah.
It's a good standing, absolutely. So, so yeah, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at right now professionally. I've been at this private practice. It'll be 2 years, I think, in September or October, which is just insane
That's so
to
cool.
me. I like vividly remember getting the call to come work here, and I was just like, it's been really, really, obviously really rewarding. I mean, the entire job's been rewarding. Some places have been harder to work out than others.
Sure.
For a multitude of reasons. You know, every place is different, but after trying out a couple of nonprofit type agency jobs, I just said, yeah, you know what, this area isn't for me. I'm gonna jump into private practice, and I will stay there. So
those settings can be really rough too.
Oh my God. I ain't gonna lie, that first year, getting a consistent caseload was like pulling teeth. That is probably the biggest con of private practice, is you start from zero. And thankfully, the people I work with here are incredible at referring clients to me, whether it's like they see a couple and they refer an individual from that couple, or they see an individual and then they refer the individual's partner. And they've also been really, really good at advertising all therapists on all platforms. So they really, really did give me a good leg up.
Yeah. That's also good insight for anybody else to know, like, why they might see so many of their therapists who are part of a group practice, whether that be like a massive online platform like Alma.
Yes.
You know, using one of those, or just, you know, an IRL office with a number of other people, just because they can refer to each other, different skill sets. A client may have a gender preference or cultural preference, whatever it is. Or just a modality thing. Like, I'd love to know, speaking of, what modalities that you would prefer to kind of operate in, what you're curious about deploying.
Yes. So the main modality I've used in therapy for one-on-one is the big one, cognitive behavioral therapy. That's what I practiced all throughout practicum, and it just seemed to be the theory that stuck with me the most. Professionally and personally. I myself have been in therapy pretty consistently since about 14 or 15, and CBT was really the one, along with meds. CBT was really the one that helped click, and kind of helped me go through what I was experiencing. So that's the main modality I use. And so, in a nutshell, really all that CBT states is that our thoughts or our cognitions can influence not just the way we behave, but it can also influence our perception of everything. It can influence our attitudes, it can influence our beliefs, it can influence our relationships and how we view our relationships, whether it's with a partner or family, friend, coworker. And what it theorizes is that we get stuck in negative feedback loops, which is really just a fancy way of saying we get stuck thinking certain cognitive distortions. So there's like a dozen cognitive distortions.
I was about to pull up the list, actually. That's one of my favorite things to review, like, annually, is especially during this month, is just a cognitive distortion check-in, because even if someone doesn't latch on to the idea of CBT, because there are some diagnoses which it just doesn't necessarily gel with. Because you tell somebody, like, hey, we're going to be thinking about thinking here, it's just kind of like reinforcing a trauma trigger and gets really hard to move forward.
Oh, absolutely.
But I'm one of, like, taking a blended approach, like, take the best of every modality, synthesize that, do what works. But there's a lot to to appreciate with CBT, because I mean it's just been around the longest. There's a lot of evidence to support its benefit, its application.
Definitely.
But even if you're not using that therapy model, the cognitive distortions listed check-ins are like extraordinarily helpful in qualifying like media that you're consuming, a conversation that you're having with somebody. I was talking earlier about not propagating bullshit. Like, you can have a good checks and balances system in place just by bringing awareness to even like 3 of the cognitive distortions.
Absolutely.
Let
Yeah.
me pull up a couple things here. I've got this saved actually. I've got like a file here from Therapist-A of everything I've collected over like the last 10 years.
Yes. You love Therapist Aid. Love it, love it. I do know the one I experience the most is all or nothing.
Yeah,
all or nothing thinking. So that's one I have to be really cognizant of myself. You know, I catch myself with the always or nevers, and I have to be like that.
Yeah, especially in
Often.
relationships, like you always do this. Like, do you really, or is this like maybe
Oh
the
my
second or
God.
third time, and it's not really a problematic pattern? It's just something that annoys you in the moment, kind of thing. Like
Yes.
relationships that's just a common thing here.
100%. Yeah, that's something I've worked with. Every single couple I have had, we have had to work with all or nothing thinking within the relationship, and I
Mind
you know, tell
reading.
them right away. Yeah, I tell them right away, like, okay, you know, part of this is practicing in session, so I'm going to be, you know, kind of coaching along the way. So like, you know, if I hear you do the always or never, hi babe. If I hear you do the always or never, I'm going to be like, no, it's not always and it's not never.
Right.
Nothing is ever absolute.
There's shades of gray. Like, let's
exactly.
slow down,
Yes.
because you know, the other thing to bring attention to is like, is the goal here to create distance or connection, because you can only have one of those things at the time.
Yep, absolutely. And you know, we see a lot of I haven't had as much
chat and bakey
wakey
Dobbs.
wakey. Hi babe. Yeah, he didn't sleep very well last night.
Poor Bubba.
I was house sitting for my house and cat sitting for my parents over in Colleyville, and I guess they're lizards, because the thermostat was set to 78 degrees and my father had it permanently set so I couldn't go change it. I said, this is the most dad thing dad has ever done. So yeah, it was just a little hot, and we didn't get very good sleep.
Trying to go to sleep.
I slept a lot last night, but I had the man basically password protect. He did. I was flabbergasted. I went to go change it and it was like, it's been permanently set. I was like, this is nuts. My father. But yeah, I slept plenty last night, but I had the worst fucking pardon me. Am I allowed to? Can I use like no words?
Oh, absolutely. It's an 18 and up channel. Yeah, so you're good.
Okay. So yeah, I had the worst fucking stress dreams that I have had in recent memory, where, and I don't know, I'm sure y'all have experienced, like, it's one of the dreams where like you wake up, but when you wake up, you're still in the dream, and this repeats itself however many times until you finally wake up in real life. And
that's very
so
Inception. You've only come up one layer.
Yes.
And they pull the plug and you're up.
It was so wild. Like, each time I woke up in the dream, the theme of it was, I checked my counseling schedule and I saw like 10 people scheduled on the same day. They were all overlapping, and like my coworkers put notes in it like, oh my god, they weren't allowed to do this, but they did it anyway. Also, they're all really creepy, but let us know if you need help with anything. And I was like, excuse me? And like, I would get on my phone in my dream to like try and call them, but I couldn't find any of their information. So it felt like hours. I'm sure it was only like 20 minutes because REM sleep is crazy.
It's funny the kind of distortion we perceive when we dream, though. It's just...
It is nuts. It felt like a movie. It was a movie dream. And so yeah, I woke up dead ass in fight or flight. Like, I was sweating. I heart rate was up. I was in the worst fucking mood. I woke up in a state of dysphoria, and my poor husband. Sorry, babe. I'm much better now. I just had to.
That saint, the living
Goodness.
saint. This Dobbs,
he is. He got me coffee, and I was like,
the living
"Thanks."
patron saint of cycling.
For real. But I find dream psychology, because I have 4 dreams ever. Yeah, dream psychology is fascinating. I've always been wanting to read Freud's analysis on dreams, and I haven't yet, but I would like to.
It's about
Freud,
as accurate and scientifically driven as you would think, meaning that it's still interesting.
Definitely.
I'd take more Jungian. I wouldn't discourage reading it. I would go more Jungian on that. But even so, like, dream interpretations is a funny thing, because there's so many theories on what really influences the content of your dreaming. Like, is it a synthesis of your daily experiences? Is it reflections of projections of your shames and your desires and goals, or any unpacked, unprocessed information? Is it, if you're entertaining parts language from internal family systems, are these parts speaking to you and telling a story from within?
Yes.
And they're all
Absolutely.
just as valid if you connect with the ideas, because I'm one of those who operates from the approach, what's real is what works for that person. So,
absolutely.
as long as it's not
Yeah.
harmful, as long as it's not like existentially going to lessen their longevity on this shared consciousness that we get to experience.
Absolutely. It's I'm glad you mentioned one of the theories of dreams is that it's a time when our brain processes all of our information that we've gathered, and it can be information that we've gathered from the day or from the week or the last few weeks or months or sometimes even years.
Yeah.
And
even amidst go ahead.
No, you're good.
I was gonna say, even in like the neuroscience world, there's still not a lot of there's a lot of robust data, because dreams are studied all the time, because universally speaking, a lot of people find them brass tacks interesting. But fundamentally, why we dream, we still don't really know the why component. There's a lot of working theories that are pretty sound to just kind of, oh yeah, that checks out, and we could just walk away from this. Like, one of them is that's kind of our brain's waste management system doing a lot of its work while our lights are out. But of course, even while we're dreaming, our brains are still active. Like, none of us really shuts down. Like, we're still processing sound and sense and everything. It's just the components of our brain that would allow us to move, like while we're running in a dream, those are off, so that we're not actually acting out our dreams. But that's one of the working theories, is that it's also doing something to prevent, since there's so many systems in our brain that are interconnected but can proliferate. So like networks related to processing sound and memory, just memories on memories on memories. There's also centers for, obviously, speech and vision and touch, taste, everything, right? So one of the working theories is that for vision, since it's one of the first parts of the brain to develop and it was so ready to be active and proliferate, one of the reasons why we dream, at least in theory, is to prevent other parts of the brain from overriding other regions.
Oh.
Which I thought,
is
just as interesting, right?
Yes. That is one I had not been privy to, but it is, I think that holds a lot of water, because vision is one of our, it's one of our biggest sensors.
This information was coming from a guest that was on the Hidden Brain podcast a couple of years ago at this point. He had just published a book basically talking about exactly that, like examining what's going on with our brains, why we dream, what are the current contemporary theories that people are kind of saying, okay, there's a growing body of evidence about why we do this, but we still have like no definite certainty as to why. Exactly. He was also couching that in like covering any bases for those who entertain kind of more like spiritually oriented kind of, well, if we don't know the answer, therefore magic is happening here, right? And he's saying, well, that's not the case. That's not what we're looking to do.
Like, no, this shit is science.
It's already magical enough that we do it,
Yes. Yes, 100%. But yeah, with dreaming, dreaming is actually a big facet of another form of therapy that I practice, which I get so hype about.
Bring it
My
on, mama.
husband's about to be like, oh my God, here we fucking go. EMDR.
Oh yeah. EMDR and
I get so
IFS seem
hyped.
to take off like wildfire the past few years, but for all that, what I would imagine all the right reasons, because they're accessible, they're non-pathologizing, they're not really
Exactly.
focused on. I'm gonna shut the fuck up and let you gush, actually, because this is.
What? No. You're
I
fine.
just kicked my desk. So hi, Toast.
You're totally
Because I
fine.
want to hear you, gush about EMDR, but and then we can go back to the cognitive distortions list because I pulled that up too.
Yes, absolutely.
So EMDR. Also, hi, Toast. Welcome in.
Hello, hello, toast friend. Plain Jane Toast. Plain toast, no jam. I love that name.
Yeah, fellow streamer and DJ out there.
Oh, hell yes.
Also
Bump
does
into
his
some
share,
humans.
very fair share of hosting some mental health oriented chats.
Excellent.
I dare say
all
peer
about it.
support.
You dare say what?
I dare say peer support, as a lot of like shared chat can, I think, fairly be interpreted as. Oh hell, did I lose you?
Just for a little, but I hear you now.
Okay. So EMDR.
Yes. So EMDR stands for, it's a bit of a mouthful. It stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So buckle in. This shit is nuts. Our brain is so insane. It is both the coolest and shittiest part of our body, and it's shitty in that it tries to, everything our brain does, it's doing because it's trying to help. And in regard to this theory, our brain's goal at the end of each day is to protect us.
Mm-hmm.
Second date was basically all. Yes, it was. Yeah. So really what it postulates is that when we EMDR is used exclusively for trauma and traumatic experiences. And when we experience something traumatic, and traumatic events can be anything. I tell clients trauma is trauma is trauma. It doesn't matter how big or how small. It doesn't matter if it's what we call a big T or a little t. Matter of fact, the part of our brain that memories are stored in when it comes to trauma, our brain can't tell the difference between a big one or a little one. It doesn't recognize the impact. All it recognizes is something's wrong. Something isn't organized quite right here. So as far as after we experience something uncomfy or not fun, one of the questions I get asked a lot is, if I experience something scary, am I guaranteed to be traumatized? The short answer is no. You're not guaranteed to be traumatized, and we actually really don't know the science behind, why some people can walk away from an event and not have these symptoms, versus other people walking away from the same or a very similar event with a lot of PTSD symptoms, or sometimes even like diagnostic criteria for PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to give an educated guess, it would be it'd come back to nature nurture. We're all born with a genetic predisposition for any kind of condition, including mental conditions.
Yeah.
We're all predisposed to handle things in different ways.
Like in Peter Levine's Waking the Tiger. So he was kind of one of the foremost authors on like studying PTSD, in conjunction with a handful of other like famous names. His thing was like his verbiage was like, on anything that we process, it can be traumatic if it's just sensorially speaking. It can be traumatic, or it becomes a trauma, which in Greek means to wound. It can become a trauma if it's too much, too fast, too soon for us.
Yes.
So if it meets like all three of those parameters, then whatever it is can create that kind of exaggerated fight or flight response that we were born with to protect us, keep us alive.
Absolutely.
It's not really a system that was concerned with emotional memory. It was concerned with survival.
100%. And that is that survival what's the word I'm looking for? The freaking
Fight,
that
freeze, or
survival
fawn,
aspect.
or central nervous system response.
Yeah, like that survival aspect of our brain plays a big role in how we respond to activating moments, or what we say, respond to triggers.
Mhm.
And as far as sensory goes, our friend that did Waking the Tiger is absolutely right. As far as trauma goes, when we have a memory that is not processed correctly. So if we have a trauma that hasn't been, for whatever reason, hasn't been processed in a way that makes sense to us, in a way that makes sense to our brain, that moment in time is it's essentially frozen. And anytime that event is activated, that trauma is state dependent. So state dependent being we experience the same thoughts, the same sensations, the same cognitions. We experience all the sights, smells, sounds, everything. It is literally frozen in that moment in time.
Hold that thought, because I bet we can
And
repackage it here in a moment too. I'm getting a
exactly.
raid, so I have to. But I think we're at a good point to kind of recapitulate that too. So hi Zombots, welcome in everybody. We doing some chatting today. We doing a little psychoeducation Sunday school. I got a special guest on today. Got my friend
Hi.
Kate on here. Hello.
Greetings, everyone.
So the disembodied voice you hear today is Kate, a licensed marriage and family therapist. I suppose I should add associate on there.
Associate. 300 hours away. 300. I'm almost
And you're
there.
300 hours away. It's there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's coming quickly. It'll be here before you know it.
It's coming.
And
It
let me
will.
know when we can celebrate. Obviously.
Oh,
Obviously.
absolutely.
If
There will
to
be
tell you
a
what,
celebration.
if the Montgomery Antique Mall is still open and high tea is still available, I'll treat everyone to high tea.
We're going. Yes.
High tea.
I would love high tea.
There's be some fancy
I would love high
motherfuckers. That's it. Zombie, how was stream? Welcome in. Good to see you. I know Zombie was playing one of his all-time favorites. He was revisiting Goemon on the Nintendo 64 today.
Ooh. I didn't have a Nintendo 64 growing up, and I'm sad.
Until like the past few years, it's been some nice, pleasing the inner child. I think giving access to like what we didn't have, or at least what our friends had that we didn't, kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Now that we're adult children and we can give back to ourselves in that way.
Yes. I said I'm gonna take this money and get all the video games, and it's great.
I'm gonna get all the shit. Yeah, it's been good. Being adults kind of fun sometimes, you know.
Sometimes it
Sometimes.
it does have its
having a
perks.
brain, not always, but for the most part, I like it.
Can absolutely be a bit of a downer. It can be a lot.
And for those just joining us, that's kind of what we're talking about. Kate was opening up the door to talk about EMDR, and we were kind of talking about stress responses, fight or flight, what happens when our body's processing stress, and when too much, too fast, too soon, remember, too much, too fast, too soon can result in trauma, and how trauma impacts us later in life, and then what we can do about it. As I've learned, one of the most unfair things about experiencing trauma is experiencing in that we have to do the work it's on us. We are not responsible for what happened to us, but we are responsible for healing. But that unfairness opens the door for a lot of healing that can make us a little more adaptable and agile in so many other situations. So
Yes.
we were talking about EMDR. Kate was talking about EMDR. As it relates to healing from symptoms of trauma, it doesn't have to be PTSD. If you suspect you have trauma and you
absolutely.
connect with the ideas of EMDR, it might be for you. It's worth being
Yes.
curious about, I think. But to recap, to bring everybody up to speed, for in this case for trauma, to reference Peter Levine again, not that he's the foremost authority, he's just like what comes to mind that I like this description. He described trauma as one of these things where it's an incomplete fear response, or it's an incomplete stress response. If you think of stress responses like noticing, being active, bringing awareness to being active, surviving that episode, and then you have a moment to regulate, right? Like when the adrenaline, all of the other hormones process through you, and then you get back to that nice, buzzy, calm, cool, collected state, and then back to your baseline of whatever your baseline is. That's your complete cycle of processing a stressful event. So like, I don't know, going to Christmas with your family and then coming the fuck home and vegging out for a few hours. That's your regulatory moment, right? You get to process all of that.
Yes.
The where trauma shows up is that if it is an incomplete stress response stuck in fear. And so you've got the too much, too fast, too soon moment, but you don't get to get out of that episode is stuck within you in that fear state. So it never arrived to the point where you were calm, cool, collected. Your body showed up to protect you in that survival point and was stuck in fear because you weren't allowed in that moment to kind of close the loop, so to speak. So I think take it from here. I think EMDR helps kind of reaccess those moments and give the body a chance to close the loop on those episodes.
Yes, it absolutely does. You really at the end of the day, let me do this thought, and then Shiny, I'll answer your question. So go ahead and throw it in the chat. Oh my God, what was it? Y'all are about to figure out real quick, and I tell this to my clients too. I am beautiful with writing and putting a pen to paper and all that. When it comes to getting words to come out of my face, sometimes that can be a bit of a problem. So if a moment triggers you as an adult, but it's not as severe as when the initial trauma happened, does that mean you are still not healed from it? So what my answer would be, if you're still having an activation, so if you're still having those sensations or some of those feelings, even if they're not as severe as the moment you were in it, that would tell me that it hasn't been fully processed yet. And really what it means when I say fully processed is all we're doing at its most simple, all we're doing when we're doing EMDR is we're taking the memory in question. I tell the client, you have one foot in the memory and the other foot is here in the office with me. And when we process a memory, all we're doing is we're just changing the way it's held in our nervous system. And so what that does, and how we get to that point is while we're thinking about a memory, or when I have a client put themselves back in a memory, I provide the rapid eye movement. So that's where the eye movement desensitization part comes in. And kind of getting back to dreams, that's when, one of the biggest theories of dreams is that rapid eye movement sleep is that moment in time when we not only dream, but that's the time where our brain is taking everything that we've experienced and putting it into long-term memory if our brain deems it important enough. And so what we're trying to do in the processing part, when we provide that rapid eye movement, theoretically, that gets the part of our brain going that processes those events. So when we're processing a memory, we are not changing the memory. We are not making it worse. We're not deleting it. All we're doing is it's like getting a bundled, tangled thing of string and just untangling it into one long continuous piece. So it's like taking a bookshelf, taking all the books off of it, and then reorganizing it in a way that makes more sense to you. And so that's, in a nutshell, that's what it does physiologically. But another big part that we work through in EMDR is we work a lot with negative and positive cognition. So when we experience something traumatic, it's not just about what we experienced, it's what we now think about ourselves. So for the example I use is, let's say someone was robbed at gunpoint. So our limbic system jumps in, our amygdala does what it needs to, it sends out the fire alarm, it says, hey, we are in danger, we need to fight, flee, or freeze. And so our brain does all of that stuff correctly. So let's say that in this situation, when you're traumatized from this, we also want to look for, okay, what negative cognition did you carry away from that? And so in this situation, it's typically, I'm not safe. The big three throughout my practice have been, I'm not safe, I'm not in control, and
Do I matter comes up a lot too.
Yes, yeah, I don't matter. I can't be loved. I'm not lovable. Those are the biggest ones I see. So when it comes to the cognitions, they play a very important role, because in theory, here's my big analogy for the installation of positive cognitions. I like to picture an unprocessed traumatic memory as a conveyor belt at the grocery store. So the stuff that you put your food on, it goes down to the guy and he checks you out. Yeah. I like to picture an unprocessed traumatic memory as a broken conveyor belt. So shit's broken, all of this old stuff is on it. So all of this old stuff is covering this conveyor belt. So let's picture that as like our unprocessed event, right? And so all of that old stuff refers to all of the event, the sensations, but it also includes that negative cognition. So in this example, that negative cognition of I'm not safe. So in theory, as long as that memory remains unprocessed, as long as it remains stuck, we can know up in our frontal lobe, we can know consciously that we are safe. We could be in our house. And so we can be consciously like, what the hell? I am in my bedroom. I am in my safe place. Like, why am I not feeling safe? What's the deal? Well, we can get all of this information from our world telling us that we are safe. But that broken conveyor belt that has all of that old stuff on it. So we don't have the room. We don't have the bandwidth in that moment to accept that new information. We don't have the room to take new items that tell us we are safe and put it on that conveyor belt because there's too much on there. So what I like to think EMDR does is, as we start providing that rapid eye movement and we get that processing going, that conveyor belt starts moving. And as that conveyor belt moves, as we process and we desensitize, it clears off all of that old shit. So once all the old shit is cleared out and we have desensitized that memory, we now have that room to accept that new information. And so that's when we install a positive cognition. And it's usually the opposite of the negative cognition. So in this case, it would be, okay, I am safe. And so the goal at the end of the day for EMDR is, in regard to the traumatic event, we are looking for one of two reactions instead of a trauma response. We're looking for either a neutral response, which is just like, you think of the memory or something reminds you of the memory and you're just like, yeah, that happened. That was a thing, but we're good. It happened. I'm chill. Or we think of the positive cognition. So we think, well, I am safe. Because our brain was able to take all of that. It was able to take all of those books off the bookshelf and put them back on in a way that now tells us like, yes, that was hard. But now that we've organized it in a way that makes sense to us, we know that we're safe. So that's it in a nutshell. And I have a bunch of other things to kind of go over generally with EMDR, what it is and what it does.
I love it.
Yeah. So I get asked a lot. Let me see, EMDR. Let me look at some of these chats real quick. I want to make sure.
There's a few things to catch up, and I was gonna say we may want to catch up on a few questions, and then I do need to
Yeah,
run
yeah,
a
yeah.
commercial break, just to give us,
Yes.
like a 3-minute pause, and we can come back and have like a fresh hour to unpack some ideas too.
Totally, absolutely.
But
what-
yeah, Shiny had said something. Heather had commented about EMDR, and then Sultry.
Yes. Hit me with them.
Let's see. I think we covered the if a moment triggers you as an adult, but it's not severe as when the initial trauma happens. I mean, you're still not healed from it. So we covered that a little bit, saying like both yes and no.
Yeah, I would go ahead and like I said, everyone's journey is different, but if you're wondering if EMDR would be helpful for that kind of reaction, I would say yes. If you're still getting any sort of activation from that memory, it would be worth looking into as far as reprocessing it with a clinician.
Yeah, and I think generally what I would advise anybody, because that's all I do. I'm not licensed for anything. I just serve in a consultation role, and I'm basically, by degree, I'm qualified to teach high school Psych 101.
Nice. Yes.
But by career, I've coached up a lot of nursing home staff to success in interventions and been a crisis clinician and all that. So like what I would have advised anybody, like when I had a caseload, when I was seeing clients, would be like, if they asked me that same question, would be something along the lines of, how does that impact you now? Like when you recall
Yes.
that memory, is it intrusive? Is it disruptive? How distressed are you? When that happens, is it over-serving you? Because sometimes we remember things and we want to feel that. It would be incongruent to have like a sad memory hit and you not feel sad about that, but does it over-serve you? Is it prolonged? Is it disrupting your ability to go about your day, your daily living activities? And if so, then it's sort of analogous to, you don't blow out a birthday candle with, or you don't light a birthday candle with a blowtorch kind of thing. It's just you're giving too much energy to one scenario, and so it just begs the question: would you benefit from seeking help in processing this information? And maybe so. However it's coming up for you, however it impacts you. There's also one of those things, just like anything else, there's a frequency. How often is it happening? How long is it happening? So like frequency and duration.
Absolutely.
And is there a
huge.
pattern to it? What do you notice before those memories are triggered? Because you have glimmers, you have triggers. It may be a temperature change, it may be a sound. What can you take note of? And that's kind of where it starts to feel a little more effortful. The work starts coming to light of like, oh shit, I got to start documenting this so I can better accommodate myself.
Yeah.
So Shiny, you had a conversation with Grams yesterday. Grams, we love Grams.
Rams.
Let's see. Heather said EMDR is, when I'm saying Heather, that's strawberry tea, honey. EMDR to me felt like patting my younger self on the back and saying, that was a lot, huh? You've got a lot to go through. I think that's beautiful, and I think that is also analogous to like, I use parts language a lot because I love internal family systems model, but all the same, like even if you don't use that, it just rhetorically makes sense, because that was, presumably something happened to you when you're younger, and you're updating them, you're providing some self-validation, and then maybe an opportunity to move on and update that part, that if you have a part associated with a fight or flight response that showed up to protect you and kept you alive, whether you froze or fleed or fawned or whatever it was, that's how that part showed up for you, but they don't need to continue doing that job anymore. And so therapy, in effect, whatever therapy modality that you're seeking, is in effect reaching and accessing those parts to update them and say, we no longer need to be that active. You don't have to serve in this role anymore. You can relax. The job is done. You are safe now. And for that matter, the person that you occupy is, they've got you. They're going to keep you safe. And, revisit as needed to regulate where possible. So a lot of
Absolutely.
conversations like that can happen if you're exploring like any modality. Sultry said
Yes.
she wants to try EMDR, but is not sure. Let's see. I want to try EMDR, but it's like, I don't know what I'd try to pinpoint it on.
Pinpoint
I
it on.
think,
The clinician it definitely helps helps you kind of work through the targets that you feel are the most disturbing, or we actually we take the first step of EMDR is to take a full trauma history. And when we take a full trauma history, I tell clients, anything and everything that still makes you feel uncomfy, go ahead and let it out. And what we take from those is the clinician clusters those memories into either similar negative cognitions or similar events. So like if let's say that our example of the guy that got held at gunpoint, let's say dude just has horrible luck and he got held up at gunpoint 12 times over the course of 3 months. What EMDR does is when we take those memory targets, let's say we have the 12 times this guy was held at gunpoint, we ask then, okay, out of these 12 times, which one, do you remember which one was the first one, or the worst one, or the most recent? So one of those three are what we call like a cornerstone event. And those hold a lot more weight in our limbic system because of when or how it happened. First time, we can almost always remember the first time a traumatic event happened, especially if it was chronic or pervasive. The worst time, and then the most recent. And so the reason we do that is because when we process one of those three cornerstones, our brain craves mental health. Our brain wants to be mentally healthy. So just like our physical body wants to heal after we get a cut, our brain wants to feel mentally healthy. So in theory, when we process one of those three big ones, and our brain gets a taste of, oh my God, this is how it feels to not have to carry this anymore. This is how it feels to no longer feel scared or unloved or unsafe. Oh my God, I don't have to be hyper vigilant all the time. I feel good. Once our brain gets a taste of that, it starts knowing what to do. It is fascinating how quickly clients' limbic systems begin to resolve memories not necessarily on their own, but like first EMDR session is typically, it could be anywhere from 25 to 40 rapid eye movement passes, right? And that's because it's the first time, it's our first time, our brain's getting a taste of it. It is hard work. However, I've seen after that first initial one, we go from 25 to 40 passes down to 20, 12. There was one client I was working with for driving anxiety. We processed her big one. It took about, I think hers was 40 rapid eye movement passes. The second time she came in, we started processing. It took 5. And they were just like, what? How did this one resolve so quickly?
Neuroplasticity,
like, well,
mama.
Yeah, that's
it.
because your brain said, this feels good.
Yeah.
This feels good, and I want to feel this more. And so once it begins to pick up on, oh, we're doing that eye movement thing again, it's like, let's fucking go. I want to feel good. Let's start processing
it becomes, it's another tool in the toolkit, right? It's the old analogy of if your only tool is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. But if you expand the tools in your mental health toolkit to where you've got the equivalent of a Swiss Army knife, you've got a better sense of, okay, I'm recognizing I don't need I don't need the knife here. I need the screwdriver to loosen something or tighten. and whatever can be applied to that mechanism. But the short version is you've got a better means of self-soothing for a lot of healing from a lot of past hurts.
Absolutely.
We have 1 minute until I need to run a 3-minute ad break, but I think there's a lot more to talk about too.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna mute us, and then I'm gonna play some music, and I'm gonna tell everybody what I always tell them is to do a little somatic experiencing. Somatic meaning of the body, and I encourage you all to scan your body meats from your toes to your tits, and maybe go a little bit higher, and notice where you've got some tingles need tuning. I'm gonna play some music if it's movement that you need, and I got you, and be back in 3 with more with Kate as long as she wants to stick around.
Of course. As long as y'all are okay with me yapping.
You like that yapping? All right, back in 3, y'all. Tune's coming in. Hi, gotta go to an ad break, but I'll say hi properly soon. Oh, hey, babies.
Wake up. We're at Grandma's.
I got my cheeks back in my chair with about 4 seconds to spare. 4 minutes would be generous, but 4 seconds to spare with a fresh cup of brown.
Oh, hell yeah.
Hi, Misty. Oh my goodness. This is like the 20th time I've been reminded I don't have I'm still, it's in the works. It's in the works. I've got an alert signature for Misty friend. Misty, it's so good to see you. I've got a special guest today. Just come back from break. Got a special guest today, a friend of mine who's an LMFT associate, and we've been talking about trauma. Everybody's favorite subject, trauma. Why are you so funny? Thanks, it's the trauma, you know, that kind of thing. But also how we heal from it. How we heal from it, what modalities that certain therapists specialize in that may be a little more accessible, less pathologizing, more person-centered. And for that matter, therapy can get kind of expensive. We kind of like to make sure we're getting the best bang for our buck in most cases. In my opinion, when it comes to anything trauma-informed, EMDR, internal family systems, are gonna get you there pretty quickly. So says me anecdotally.
Yes. Yes.
By there, I mean the desired outcome, because everything is outcomes driven. The client speak, we might just say, it's about vibes, but really, it's about how regulated you are when stressors are present, because we don't want to feel 10 out of 10 motherfucking squishy when stressors are present, even though the appropriate response to some stressors that we can't avoid because it's part and parcel of being human. We want to be able to make sure that we are adapting commensurate to the stress, showing up for ourselves and not worsening or perpetuating symptoms of, say, like hypervigilance.
Yes. Yeah, the last thing we want, or the last thing we want to see when it comes to traumatic experiences, is living in that state of hypervigilance or living in that state of fight or flight. Because we weren't made, we were not biologically made to constantly live in fight or flight. Fight or flight is supposed to be like what Cable was talking about earlier. It's supposed to be a, not short, but it's supposed to be a process that happens with a beginning and an end.
Yeah, something we can close the loop on,
yeah.
you know?
Yes. And, unfortunately, there are some cases that I've worked with that experience a very pervasive traumatic upbringing or an unstable upbringing, and that can start to get really difficult as far as treatment goes, because there are so many roots to it.
With complex trauma, it gets tricky.
Absolutely.
Because there's some who have trauma that happened to them pre-verbally, and so it's one of those situations where they just quite literally don't know why they're so agitated, vigilant, whatever it is, however it's coming up for them. And so I think the work there is going to be quite a bit longer to get to the desired outcome, but still possible.
100%. And the fascinating thing about EMDR is that we can process just those. We can process feelings. We can process nonverbal events, because you're absolutely right. Like traumatic events happen at any point, and sometimes they happen before we have developed language and before we can understand language. But it is still, when it is still stored, incorrectly, or when it's not stored in a way that makes sense to us, our body still holds it. It's going back to the book.
The body keeks the score.
The body keeps the score, dude.
But it really does.
Brilliant.
Like it's kind of a brilliant title. Bessel van der Kolk, I think, fell from grace a little bit, but I still hold a lot of value towards that book and the content within it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the lady that trained me in EMDR, Susan Reed, who I want to be when I grow up, she is bonkers, like just a master at this, was talking about a client she had that was experiencing really bad highway anxiety. And Susan would ask, like, well, what do you think? Do you remember an event? And they were like, no, I really don't know why this is happening.
Yeah.
And so whenever Susan started to talk to her about, do you remember any stories that your family told you, from the ages of 0 to 2? And that's at one point, I don't know if it was that session or the next, because I think client may have gone to talk to their parents. Client was like, well, okay, yeah, my parents were telling me about this time where I was only like 6 or 7 months old, and we got into this. It wasn't a serious car wreck, but it was on the highway. We either got rear-ended or we rear-ended someone else, and so ambulance showed up, police showed up, and so parents kind of got wrapped up in talking to police or being checked out by EMTs that at one point in time, the client as a baby was, and this is going to sound bad, it's not as bad as it sounds, but she was left on the side of the road. She wasn't alone. There were still people around her, like her parents were nearby, but baby was by herself.
But at a time when we're social learners, and in that stage of lifespan development, we kind of learn to co-regulate, and our sense of security is very much closely attached to our caregivers. And if they are not present to help us co-regulate when we are stressed, then outcomes can be kind of bad.
Ding, ding, ding. That's exactly what Susan was telling her, and was like, well, good news, we can just process the feeling. Even though you don't remember this event, your body does. Mm-hmm. So we can process what your body's feeling during the moments that you're on the road, because what your body's feeling is what you experienced when you were an infant, which is like, what? That is so nuts. Our brain, and this is what I mean by, like, our brain can be an asshole sometimes. Like, it means
such
well,
a dick.
and like, yeah, it can be such a dick, because what it's trying to do is it's trying to create a mental shortcut, right? Like,
brain loves shortcuts. Path of least resistance to the candy.
Exactly. And our hippocampus, which is a cool little part of our brain that transfers short-term memories to long-term memories. Our hippocampus is like next door neighbors with our amygdala, which is our emotion center. And
very
our
close.
amygdala is the part of our brain that goes like, yo, hey, I don't like this feeling. And
that's the emotional seat of the brain.
Yeah. And once amygdala picks up those feelings, our hippocampus, and by the way, all this stuff I'm talking about happens within half a millisecond.
Before we're even what we would consider the construct of consciousness, it all fires before we can even verbalize it.
Yes.
Selcher said something I think is worth tying on to too. I want to come back to that idea. But as far as like staying curious about EMDR, Sultry, she's saying we wondered about that too because he blocked out some bad stuff, but don't want to EMDR it. So here's the thing with EMDR. You don't have to volunteer that. You don't have to paint a picture of exactly what's coming up for you. It's just processing that emotion back to a regulated state. You don't have to access everything at granular detail. You don't have to get, too visceral about it, is my understanding.
Absolutely. We tell clients, you can tell us as much or as little as you want. We don't need the nitty-gritty details. If you want to tell us the nitty-gritty details, go ahead. It is completely up to you.
That's
as long as
go ahead.
No, you're good. Like, as long as you have that target in mind, you don't have to tell us anything. You can just be like, something really bad happened here. I don't want to go into details, but I do want to process this. I do know what my target is. Then we're like, let's do it. We don't have to know.
But that's one of the things where, like I was saying earlier, not every therapy modality is going to be applicable for every diagnosis, every symptom. Like, nothing can be overgeneralized. Absolutely. There's not a one size fits all, and we kind of want to synthesize the best components of every tool, right? But there is a form of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, that is also TCBT, so trauma-informed CBT. But it's kind of counterintuitive in some cases, not for everybody. It just depends on how they hang on to their trauma. But it's kind of counterintuitive for some persons for that exact reason, because it can ask a client to unpack every negative association with, like, say it was a kidnapping event, and then they're triggered by, say, every time they see a red van, if they were pulled into that type of vehicle, it just shut down. Which can be prohibitive if they live in a world where they have to be around cars all the time and you can't predict traffic, and so the avoidant mechanisms kick in where you just stay inside all the time. And this is a very real application of a client that I worked with in crisis years ago. and they were doing trauma-informed CBT, but it was taking them a very long time, which I understood years later because of, and it's just one example of many, where it just kind of has like a counterintuitive application of where a therapy modality can ask a lot of a client to volunteer things because it can be reactivating, right? And so that's where EMDR and even some aspects of IFS just kind of get to the point the point being healing, restoring, like a restorative practice a little bit faster without having to unnecessarily retell that entire story.
Absolutely. And I tell clients that are hesitant about processing. Well, and first and foremost, when we're practicing EMDR at any point during the process, we could be in the middle of a rapid eye movement pass. If the client at any point is like, I'm out, I'm done, I don't want to do this, and they say stop, we stop. We stop immediately. The last thing we want to do is like what you were talking about. The last thing we want to do is activate. The last thing we want to do is re-traumatize. This is something that we take at the client's pace. So like I've had clients before where we do a few processing sessions and then they come in and they're like, oh my God, I am so wiped. Oh, and ACE, play and draw. I think I think that absolutely, I think, yeah, exactly what I was talking about with the bees. It sounds like your body remembers getting stung by multiple bees.
Yeah. Ace, you're describing like having a negative experience with those, something that was out of your control and rightfully, stressful response and maybe some heightened vigilance. Like you notice bees around, you may feel a little more protective of yourself around them or avoidant, whatever else. If that's the case, there may be some lingering stress to process.
Yes. So yeah, Ace, that is right on the money. I tell clients as well, like those that are hesitant to begin processing but still want to, I'm just like, I know it sounds scary and it is going to feel scary. It is going to be hard work because we are activating this moment in time. So you are going to feel what you did in this moment in time. Yeah. But you've done the hardest part. You've lived it. You have lived it. That is the hardest part. You've experienced it. All we're doing now is we're just reorganizing. We're getting it to where your brain doesn't have to keep experiencing it. At least in an activation type way. Yeah. So yeah, it is something.
State, and I think even if you're any of you in chat for that matter, whoever's listening to this later, if you're even like remotely curious and you have the means to explore that therapy, and if you have a history that you're thinking may be associated with something you'd like to change, explore that, look into it. Or virtual 100%. Or in person, like Shiny mentioned earlier, she's got a therapist within walking distance and she was thinking about making an appointment. I fucking celebrate that all day. I think that's awesome.
Girl, yes.
Because
I'm
one of the hardest,
Friday.
Yeah, one of the hardest things about therapy for a lot of people is, when it comes to the protective mechanisms that we've used to self-soothe, a lot of them can be associated with stress avoidance and just reinforming that same cycle of protective mechanisms and what it can mean to heal, why someone may be a little more, and they may even not even be conscious of this, but one of those protective mechanisms would be to avoid going to therapy. As strange as that sounds, absolutely. Like they can know it's good for them, but there can be other protective mechanisms in the way of saying, well, hey, I've survived this long since that fucked up thing happened to me. Why would I change? Yep. What's the benefit of me changing?
Yes.
I'm gonna go get some ice cream, bitch. Yep. And then, go on. But you can still go ice cream and get therapy. Go ice cream absolutely. And get therapy. Those are words.
Yes. Go to therapy and then get yourself a therapy treat.
Yeah, get a therapy treat. Post-therapy treats are awesome, by the way.
Absolutely they are. My therapist has a bowl of Jolly Ranchers and I always take at least 3 because that's my therapy treat.
Nice.
My line is, I'm healed, I'm fine. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And whatever line, whatever mantra works best for you, works for you. Yeah, I was trying, what was my mantra lately? I've been having one that I've been telling myself. Oh shit.
I got through so many I couldn't say.
Me too. Damn it.
We love ourselves that soothe, especially the
Well, like,
cognitive ones. Oh, what we're thinking about that I can answer your hubby's question here. So I use the Winamp player. It still kicks the llama's ass. But I've got nothing but video game tunes rotating through. Like, this is my Just Chatting playlist, so it's gonna be something a little less dancey, a little less bouncy. This is the menu music from Gran Turismo 2.
Ooh.
Also, keep wanting to first name him. if Dobbs, if you want any of that music, I've got the zip files that I'm open to sharing.
Ooh, oh, Shiny, you bring up a really good point. As far as, you know, feeling activated during an argument, conflict can actually be mistaken, and it often is. It can be mistaken as a threat.
Yeah.
Because when we start arguing with someone, our our heart rate goes up. We start hyperventilating. We start, we start preparing ourselves to protect ourselves. Even though we know up in our frontal lobe, we're just having an argument, we're not fighting a bear. All our limbic system knows is, I'm getting this feedback that we're in danger, so we need to protect ourselves.
So that's where I like the, well, I do and I don't, because it can, depending on one's kind of posture about this, it can sound a little shaming, but I have kind of a strengths-focused association with it. But from DBT, from Marshall Linehan's dialectical behavioral therapy model, it asks, in some situations, are we using our wise mind? Are we operating from our wise mind? And to that, I just interpret kind of neurologically like how our brains develop. Our brains develop from the brainstem up. And so those nonverbal parts of our brain, like our amygdala and our hippocampus and everything like right there in our midbrain limbic system, all those things happening before pre-verbal, and the last part of our brain to develop is our prefrontal cortex, and that usually happens like in our late 20s for most of us. CTs notwithstanding, right? Outside of that, I like the wise mind verbiage because it asks us to kind of take pause in the moment and ask ourselves, like, are we noticing how this stress is impacting us? Because our brains, the midbrain limbic system I mentioned, they don't know the difference. That part, I say they, that part of I'm personifying our brain. That part of our brain doesn't know the difference between a lion in the savannah and someone who just said, I think you're fucked. That same that you're still going to have a stress response, but then you can bring awareness to that and kind of soothe in the moment. So I'd say, like, person to person, like interpersonal conflict, those are not to idealize anything, those are really conducive moments to try and practice adapting to those stressors in real time. You're not always going to get it right, so give yourself some grace. But if you can, the moment you bring awareness to your thoughts, you're already doing like step one of cognitive processing. So good 100%. Job if you're doing that.
Yes. No, I love me some DBT. DBT is one that I don't practice in session as much, just because I'm not completely trained on it. But I mean, I've got the workbook. I've watched some workshops on it.
I just bought it for Dummies book and attended some webinars. I'm just like, I can claim no expertise, but the skills that I've used have have made sense, to apply.
Oh, absolutely. I wish I had heard about DBT when I was like 14.
Oh God, yes.
14 on, honestly.
I say that, I don't know, I would have been indignant. Like, you use your wise mind.
I would have been like, whatever, man. Okay, whatever you say, dude.
Use your wise mind.
Use your wise mind. Asshole.
Yeah.
I do love me some DBT. I used a DBT approach for an anger management class I taught at UGM when I was working with the homeless population. They enjoyed the I referred to the limbic system as the lizard brain.
The triune brain model.
Every time I'd come into class, I'd be like, okay, so what did y'all do this last week? They'd be like, I calmed down my lizard brain. I worked with my lizard brain. I was like, very good, dude. Hell yeah. You calmed down the lizard brain.
I like that. That might be a good segue to, like, going back to cognitive distortions, since we're talking about thinking, and then we can obviously insert anything about EMDR along the way. All right, so I've got a list of them pulled up. It's a non-exhaustive list because there are plenty of other mental health professionals out there that have kind of repackaged the same verbiage. So some of these people may have heard of in different terms, but I think you'll recognize some of the definitions as we go through them. Let's see, what source was I sharing these from? I think it was this one. Yeah, there we go. I thought, right. I think I've got a prettier graphic for these too. I'm gonna look. I think I got something sexier. I think I bought a package of some cuter shit to use here. Is it those? I don't know what just opened. What do y'all see? Can y'all see all the shit in my computer? Oh, these are some DBT skills. Okay, so wise mind once again, yay. Of course, these resources I can always share in the Discord too. This is not what I was looking for. We can absolutely come back to those another day. You know what? For the here and now, this is fine. I know I've got something sexier. You want to make me sexier? It's one thing mental health is it's sexy.
Mental health is
it's a lot of things. We make it sexy.
Facts. We do.
All right, so a non-exhaustive list of cognitive distortions because it's Mental Health Month, mamas and brass tacks. This is not a replacement for therapy, never will be. This is for educational purposes only.
Absolutely.
However,
Yes.
a lot of this is practical, applicable verbiage that you can tether to some cognitive practices, thinking about thinking in your day-to-day. And maybe helpful. It's the first on the list of cognitive distortions, or I guess let's define them. Cognitive distortions are irrational thoughts, as opposed to rational thoughts, that can shape how you see the world, how you feel, and how you act. It is normal to have these thoughts occasionally, but they can be harmful when they are too frequent or too extreme, or for that matter, override what we were saying earlier about what would otherwise be your wise mind. They can be limiting ideas. They can prohibit you from really hearing somebody, meeting them where they are, maintaining some kind of security, talking from a secure versus insecure place. Because a lot of the times you'll find patterns associated with these so-called cognitive distortions are tethered to your insecure projections. I want to be passive aggressive or hurt or not really hear somebody because of other protective mechanisms. First on the list is magnification and minimization, making a mountain out of a molehill, exaggerating or minimizing the importance of events. You might believe your own achievements are unimportant or that your mistakes are excessively important. Catastrophizing.
Whoops.
Oh, go ahead.
Yep. No, you're good. That's just one. That's a big one for me.
Yeah, catastrophizing I think comes up for a lot of people, seeing only the worst possible outcomes of a situation. And this one I think comes up for so many of us because of what one of my favorite clinicians, Rick Hansen, refers to as our negativity bias. So like part of our brain's survival mechanisms as humans evolved and adapted to being really good at surviving, so too did the part of our brain that latches on to negative information like Velcro and positive information like Teflon. Happiness being like a transient experience, but it's really easy for us to remember how bad of a time we had at a restaurant, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. Or whatever else, but it's really easy to catastrophize when we've had our negativity bias reinforced time and time again. Until we kind of bring awareness to that, because we don't want to apply that same negativity bias to a situation and place and other people who have not wronged us. Overgeneralization, making broad interpretations from a single or few events. So this is one thing that comes up in some, not all, some couples' relationships, making broad interpretations from a few or single events. I felt awkward during my job interview. I am always so awkward. Always, never. We were saying earlier.
Yep, that's a bit. Yep.
As it sounds silly, but you really can break things down to like, okay, do I always do this? And you don't have to count it, and it doesn't necessarily help to be like, okay, this is the 17th time I've done this, but.
No, absolutely. And, another thing I tell clients, kind of branching off of that distortion is.
Do it.
Is like a type of reframe that I've found really helpful throughout practice is we tend to take those distortions and we make it about us, and like not in a conceited way. We put that thought, we take that thought as truth, because whenever we think something, especially if it's negative always has such a louder volume than a more positive or a more helpful thought. Whenever we have something like that, we tend to take it as gospel, and we usually take it and put it upon ourselves, like, if I'm thinking this, then it must be true, because why would I think it otherwise?
Yeah.
Well, like, first of all, we have like 60,000 thoughts each day. Our brain is constantly going through all sorts of crazy bullshit. And so that's the first
It's
thing
so
I
many
say.
impressive
And then I'm like,
things that just keep us alive. Like, it's breathing automatically for us.
yes, it is just constantly,
Helping
it's
our hearts
constantly
beat
going and
automatically
gathering
for us, you know?
And yeah, and something I tell them is just like, you know, you like, the distortion for me that I work through a lot is like, let's say a distortion is, I'm such a stupid little idiot. I had a client one time that was like, I am such an idiot. I'm such an idiot. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah, self-talk, Bubba, self-talk.
I was like, you can feel like you're an idiot, but that doesn't mean you are an idiot. Like,
Those are rookie
you know,
numbers.
take that thought and externalize it from yourself, you know?
Yeah.
You can feel something, but that doesn't mean you are.
Yeah,
So like,
we were talking
instead of-
mantras earlier, like little things that like sometimes we hang on to them for a week, and I call them pearls, like little pearls of wisdom that we take with us. One of my favorite pearls that I actually have held on to longer than a week is don't believe everything you think.
Yes, absolutely.
Because you can have ideas happen for us automatically throughout the day, just like Kate was saying. That doesn't mean that they belong to us, right? I mean, they're coming from us, they're sprouting from us, but we're probably, getting signals from information that was fed to us. We don't have to retain that. We can let. There's an exercise of imagining your thoughts as leaves in a river, and you choose to collect what ideas out of that flow that you really want, but the rest of them you let continue on into the nevermore. Never to be retrieved again. If you don't want to access them or retain them or give them attention, you can just let them motherfuckers go. Same thing with like a train of thought exercise. Train of thought. Envision the train of ideas and different cargo packs going along with those ideas. You can let them go. Whatever visual exercise works for you if you connect with those ideas. Kate, you were talking about something that I pulled up a exercise for earlier, putting your thoughts on trial.
Yes.
So like examining what evidence you have for and against, feeling like a piece of shit.
The CBT way. Interesting. And your evidence for that thought?
Yeah.
I always love doing that. I'm like, oh, okay, so what evidence do you have that you're the worst person alive? Tell me what physical evidence? Show me what you got. Kind of putting them on trial and just externalizing and being like, I'm having the feeling that I'm an idiot. I'm having the feeling that I'm financially irresponsible. That's something I had to work through, was just like, I am so fucking terrible with finances. I have no fucking clue what I'm doing. What the shit? I just had to be like, no, I'm having the feeling that I'm financially irresponsible.
Noticing that I'm very critical of myself when I feel like I haven't spent my money appropriately, you know?
Yes, absolutely.
Challenging negative thoughts. Is there substantial evidence from my thought? Is there evidence contrary to it? Am I attempting to interpret the situation without all the evidence? What would a friend think about this situation? That's advice I dole out plenty of. What would someone who loved and cared about you offer you in this situation? Or even inviting somebody to, imagine even a fictional character that they would think, give them maybe not necessarily unconditional positive regard, but at a minimum good advice of maybe cognitive reappraisal or putting those thoughts on trial. Could you give yourself a little more grace, Because, I mean, how is
Absolutely.
it, the other question to follow up with is, how is it benefiting me to talk so negatively
Yes.
about myself? You know, is that
Yes.
changing the outcome? Is that making anything better? I mean, it may feel like work, but it's not, it's counterproductive.
Yeah, yeah. A question that I ask a lot in CBT is how. So tell me how this method of thinking is helping you.
Yeah.
How is this thought? Is this thought productive? Is it getting you where you want to be? You know, and if not, it's like, okay, what's the way that we can reframe this that puts it in a way that makes more sense. You know, I always tell clients, like, CBT at its core kind of sounds like just like think positive. And I always tell clients, like, look, and I'm not shitting on thinking positively. Thinking positively can only help, right? But we're also looking at, like, is this thought helpful? Is this helping me?
It's a pretty ongoing criticism of mine of like what I started talking about Stream with, of just those accounts that kind of their goal is to get clicks for intellectualizing, you know, really non-substantive feel-good verbiage. Like, it sounds important, it sounds healing, but it's really not a replacement for therapy for somebody.
Absolutely.
It's not moving the needle. It's not perpetuating, like, motivation for change. And I just lost my train of thought on that. But hi, Gabby, welcome in.
Hey.
Damn it! I had a really good point that I was gonna bring home.
Oh my God, no, I am right there with
It
you.
might be
I totally
gone.
get it, man.
It might be gone.
Oh my God, I get it. Story of my
Fuck,
life.
we've been on a roll too. I've been on a roll. Synapse has been popping.
We've been talking about the brain and shit. My yapping levels are catastrophic.
I got excited
Thank you.
because Gabby's here. That's what was it, you know? Hi, Gabby. Welcome in. For those just joining us, we have been talking about different therapy modalities that can, theoretically, empirically, there's evidence to support that they are helpful for healing from past hurts. And I'm overgeneralizing past hurts. That can be a blanket statement for if you even suspect you have trauma, any past stressor that may be negatively impacting your daily living activities, however that's showing up for you. If you're having difficulty managing interpersonal conversations and giving too much to one episode, or intrusive thoughts are coming up for you and that's impacting your day-to-day, there are methods for healing, one of which that my friend Kate here specializes in is EMDR. We're currently talking about some cognitive strategies that you can use to bring awareness to when you might be misattributing something that is emotionally led, that could result in an undesired outcome of disconnect versus connection with yourself or others. So that's where it ties into the benefit of recognizing cognitive distortions.
Absolutely.
We left off on I don't know, some of these there's so much overlap with some of these. I think this is part of what I was gonna say earlier. There's so much overlap with some of these, or like overgeneralization and saying I'm always or never these things, because that ties into all or nothing, or what I was taught was called dichotomous thinking, dichotomous reasoning.
Exactly.
Like, am I applying an all or nothing 0 to 100 scenario to something that really this isn't applicable because shades of gray, mama.
Yep. Yeah.
But we weren't always taught that, especially if we were raised in an environment of someone who's pretty emotionally reactive or insecure.
Yes.
You know, we get to unlearn a lot of things as we go too.
Oh yeah. I had to do I've been having to do a lot of work on my own emotional regulation because I truly didn't know up until about the age of 30 that I had no fucking clue how to do it, or at least do it in a way that was helpful to me.
Well, yeah, it's like driving. We all kind of tend to overestimate how really fucking good we are at it until we get a gut check. Like, hey, I've been riding with you for a while and you're kind of scary.
Now, and if my husband's still listening, he's gonna say that I drive not well. Those are just allegations. My driving is perfect.
I have not seen the data to support this. You know, Dobbs, whatever you got, you know.
Whatever he says, I did not hit a curb 3 times on our first date. That did not happen. At least that's not how I remember it. But yeah, no, it is.
It's how he chooses to ride his bike.
Yes, no, those are simply allegations. I remember two. I'll admit it.
I'm gonna interpret that as like an emotional curb, like you noticed something might have sounded sharper, and so you reframed. You were expertly cognitively reframing, and that came out as like, oh, I'm going to curb this and alter my verbiage a little bit. I do that all the time.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Babe,
impressive. You could do that while you're driving, though. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. First dates while driving. I think that's kind of great. That really expedites the getting to know you phase. Just hop in the car and, yeah.
Absolutely.
If you feel safe getting in a car with somebody, I'd always recommend that.
Well, and to be fair, we were just driving from his place on Lipscomb to Spiral Diner, which actually makes me sound worse. That makes me sound worse because that was only like a quarter mile away.
Any of y'all ever get to Fort Worth, I will highly recommend going to Spiral Diner, especially if you like vegan food.
Lord. So good.
Vegan restaurant and bakery.
Yeah. Yep. I frequent it. I'm a omnivore, but I do enjoy Spiral because I am lactose intolerant. So I know nothing there's gonna hurt me.
It's it's a conducive menu for those of us who get hot girl tummy. Less likely to get it there. I don't know, that diet cheese. They use that diet cheese and a few things. That kind of, not to derail the conversation, but that kind of fucked with me a little bit.
No, diet just ain't it. I don't know. I haven't had it in a while. Maybe they've like changed the recipe or something. But for like the first few years I tried diet, it just tasted like chalk.
Yeah.
I was just like, damn. But
yeah, it's not from a culinary standpoint, not the most attractive verbiage.
Not the most attractive.
Especially with so many out there who like have a hard time arousing their curiosity about a vegan diet in the first place. Talk about cognitive distortions. This doesn't taste like meat. It's not supposed to. It is supposed to taste good.
Silly?
It is supposed to taste good, not like an ashtray.
Exactly. Yeah, or like sawdust. I think that was another way I described it. Was like, this tastes like sawdust.
Rotten boot. I don't know.
Rotten boot.
This boot's got the rot. Okay, other cognitive distortions, and these aren't. Some of these may come up in relationships with yourself and others. If you don't connect with them, that's okay. Magical thinking is another one. The belief that thoughts, actions, or emotions influence unrelated situations. It quotes, if I hadn't hoped something bad would happen to him, he wouldn't have gotten into an accident. So that's also a reference of like externalizing, and externalizing and internalizing. You're assigning shame and guilt to something that would, if you are this person, assigning shame and guilt to something that you had no influence on whatsoever. Other examples of magical thinking that I was taught are just trying to mind read, assume the behavior of someone, and largely assuming the worst. Yeah. Assuming the worst in a lot of cases of, if you've ever caught yourself in a relationship saying, I knew you were going to do that. I knew you were going to say that, especially in the heat of the moment. When those negative biases are pretty active, and it gets a little more difficult to access that so-called wise mind and kind of bring awareness to our thoughts before. I guess the better way to say it is to notice when we would like to be more responsive than reactive. That might be a good example of when you're using magical thinking, especially in a harmful way.
Yes. Yeah, magical thinking was a big one for me for a while. Well, I thought it was for a while, and I'm not saying that if you do the distortion magical thinking that you have this, but what it turned out to be was obsessive compulsive disorder.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it can. I guess I took magical thinking as like like, you know, well, if I think this, or if I do this, or if I think this enough, then it won't happen because
Right.
I've worried about it enough. And that was just a facet of it.
Just having a rule system in place to navigate the day.
Yeah.
Or a very
Absolutely.
elaborate one for that matter.
Yes. Yep.
Also, could be systemic of trauma experiences too. Also, for what it's worth, like any of these that we're mentioning, like any of these cognitive distortions, are not something to use against anybody. I always like making sure to caution against like using mental health verbiage of any sort, clinical verbiage, because that happens too fucking much. Of hearing like, oh, they're so bipolar.
Yes.
This art is so schizophrenic. Like, I hate shit like that because it's pathologizing. It reinforces stigma.
Yep.
Don't do that.
Yep. Do not.
But also, like, none of these are like diagnostic specific. It's not something that you have. They're just constructs to give you a frame of reference to bring awareness to if you identify with these patterns and want to change and are motivated to change.
Absolutely.
And all that jazz.
Yeah. And they're, you know, cognitive distortions are something every single person experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, so it's like, you know, you can't, don't be going to friends or family or partner and be like, you're using the all or nothing thinking, because it's like, well, yeah, they might be, but you are too. Like, I guarantee you've also done it, and it's something that we aren't really even, like you said, we aren't really cognizant of doing it. It's just a way that we have learned to think, and in some ways, you know, do it in a sense to like protect ourselves. Like, you know, with catastrophizing, we're jumping to the worst case scenario as a method. Our brain is thinking as a method of protection. Like, well, if we're prepared for the worst case scenario, then hey, that's great. When it's like, yeah, but you don't have to do all of that. You don't need to do all that work though, because the worst case scenario is only one of an infinite amount of possibilities. If you give that much energy into thinking about the worst case, you need to put that much energy into thinking about the best case, because it has just as much probability of happening.
Exactly.
So there's a little brain.
Like, what if it goes to shit? What if it doesn't? You know, it's easy. And it's funny, like, talking about all these best practices and how often it could result in a, why didn't I think of that? This sounds really easy. This sounds obvious. And that's the thing. Like, most everybody knows these things. It's just remembering to access them.
Yep. And, like, you know, what Strawberry Tea Honey's saying, you know, preparing for the worst case scenario, it can't hurt me, I beat it to the punch. You know, it's interesting you say that, because that's actually something that we do. That's an intervention in therapy that we use from time to time, called decatastrophizing, which is where we, you know, when the client's talking about like, oh my God, worst case, like this is going to happen, then we go like, okay, go there. Let's go to the absolute worst case scenario. What would that be? The worst case scenario is I get fired, all my coworkers hate me. Okay, so you get fired, all your coworkers hate you. What's the plan? What's the plan after that? What can you do in that situation? What do you have control over if this would happen? I'd start looking for jobs. I'd start getting references. I'd start applying, and then before they know it, they're already recognizing, like, I am completely capable of handling this.
I think that's it. Once you start thinking about thinking, we're using a more analytical brain, you're getting out of that self-critical brain, and you are a little more, and it helps to have some guidance the first few times.
Yes, absolutely.
Someone who's kind of nurturing that along, but you're a little more solutions focused. It's real easy to glean, especially with mental health diagnoses and seeing every symptom and going, I have that, I struggle with that. But then the follow-up is, but what are you going to do about it? What are you doing about it?
Yep.
Which sounds kind of dickish when I put it that way, but...
Well, no, it's like, that's part of our... that's part of the... That's when it falls, that's when that responsibility falls on us. You know, like you were saying, we aren't responsible for what happened to us, but we are responsible for doing the work, working through it in whatever way that looks like to you. So yeah.
We are responsible to ourselves to change.
Fact.
I do have a decatastrophizing worksheet too, if anybody needs that in the Discord. For that matter, everything we've discussed today, I have like supplements on. That sounds like a wellness, like, hey, take this. Psychoeducation sheets. I don't know. There's a simpler way to say it. I got papers. I got papers on you. If you want them, just drop them if you want them.
I also dropped the
oh shit!
official.
That link got squashed, but I can fix that.
Okay, yeah, that's just the official EMDR Association website.
Can you whisper that to me, or whisper it to a VIP or a mod? Or shit, put it in the what are we using? Discord? Put it in the Discord chat. I can probably share it there. I was trying to make you VIP, but apparently I don't have any additional slots.
All good. I'm dropping it in the Discord.
Okay.
Conversit.org. So yeah, if any of y'all are curious about EMDR, go to this website. I'm not knocking any other websites, and I'm not saying that, other sources. Oh dear.
Oh wait, it may be because I don't have the video open. I know where it is. Do I? I know how to internet. No, I don't. Did you put it in the Discord or in our chat?
I did both. Oh my god, am I on camera now?
Here we go. EMDR-A. EMDR-A. Okay, cool.
EMDR.
I found it. Okay.
Oh,
there we go.
Dear. Okay.
There's a linky. Creating global healing, health, and hope. All right, I reckon, I have a marginally high level of confidence we can finish this cognitive distortion sheet before my next forced ad break.
Indeed.
Because these are so, I don't know, these are really conducive for like branching out other ideas and, I don't know, applications for good outcomes. Personalization. I've heard this packaged in another way, but the belief that you are responsible for events outside of your control. My mom is always upset. She would be fine if I did more to help her. That's also something that would be tied to like insecure attachment and probably having a parent with some form of anxious attachment. Not that I latch too much onto attachment theory, but we are social learners. If they reinforce mechanisms that your only way to show up to feel loved and valued is to be productive and do things, that's going to beg the question if you have something to heal from. Because that type of, a lot of these cognitive distortions, anything we're recognizing here, is going to come from judgments, or just to summarize it, any sort of social learning that was given to you that you would not likely have chosen to have. And again, like we were saying earlier, some of these are byproducts of just having a brain that likes to tell a story and sometimes the path of least resistance.
Yes. I'm sorry, I was having some technical difficulties there.
I was about to check in. We're like, we still got you. Oh, we got a Grams. We got a Grams that popped in here. Hi, Grams. Welcome in.
Grams.
We're gonna do it. Grams. There's that sweet baby. For those just joining us, we are talking how to heal from trauma, what modalities are thought to be conducive for that, such as EMDR, CBT, and let's see, internal family systems, DBT. On the line today, we've got my friend Kate, an LMFT associate, who is waxing evangelically about EMDR because we love it very much. Presently, we are running through some cognitive distortions that are pretty common because this is helpful, just generally speaking, for us to bring awareness to in our everyday kind of interpersonal happenings.
Absolutely.
Sure. So mind reading you talked about earlier. I jumped one. I jumping to conclusions. Interpreting the meaning of a situation with little or no evidence. So like when I was saying earlier, a lot of these kind of run together. Like I would tie this to also magical thinking.
Yeah, and like in a way, catastrophizing.
Yeah. Just
Interesting.
interpreting like very little information and mountain out of a molehill to make it less academic sounding.
Yes.
But interpreting the meaning of a situation with little or no evidence, or personalizing it, saying, oh, this happened because of something I did. I didn't pray enough. I didn't think enough good thoughts. I didn't shut the door 5 times before I left the house. Whatever it was. Mind reading up next, interpreting the thoughts and beliefs of others without adequate evidence. She wouldn't go on a date with me. She probably thinks I'm ugly. What evidence do you have to support that? You beautiful brain. And for every one of these, there is a near inexhaustible list of tools to reappraise, revalue. Oh yeah, Kate, I remembered what I was going to say earlier. It was about toxic psychology. You were saying earlier, none of what we were sharing was to more or less tell somebody to just smile about it,
Yes.
But the unfair part of healing and being a little more self-connected and operating from a more self-compassionate place requires doing a lot of work. At the same time, superficially engaging with like TikTok and pathologizing Facebook memes aren't going to get you there. Suffice to say, a lot of that shit that also ties in the beginning of stream bullshit reinforces the harmful notion that psychology is like a soft science or snake oil or anything like that, when verbiage about toxic psychology is thrown out there and reinforced. Toxic positivity, you may also know it as.
Yes.
That shit don't work, and we don't do that here. We don't know her.
Yeah, and we don't know nothing about we don't know nothing about psychology being a soft science or not a real science. Get out of here
There's way
with that.
too much empirical evidence that drives the modalities to consider it that.
Absolutely.
But I think at one time, from what I was reading, and it's the book I'm on now, the bullshit I'm on now is a book called Nobody's Normal, and it's unpacking the historical origins with acknowledging everything problematic about the origins of old school psychiatry and bringing it to present day, while acknowledging things like, all things capitalism tend to create an onset of and exacerbate a lot of the mental health needs that we see. And at its origin story was designed to do things that reinforce stigma that we still see trickling in our kind of social zeitgeist today. And it just kind of explains but doesn't excuse why we still have a lot of work to do, but it also highlights how much better things are. Clinicians like you who acknowledge like the biopsychosocial model and that we are complex creatures. There's no one right way to healing.
Absolutely.
And more. But it talks about that too. We've got a few more of these, and I've got like 3 minutes ahead of an ad. I think we can still get through these. Fortune telling, which I guess the way they formatted this may be like a subset of jumping to conclusions, is what I'm gathering here. The expectation that a solution will turn out badly. The expectation that a situation will turn out badly without adequate evidence. Emotional reasoning, the assumption that emotions reflect the way we really are. I feel like a bad friend, therefore I must be a bad friend. So like when we were talking about catastrophizing, and then the kind of antidote for catastrophizing being decatastrophizing, what can you do to challenge that? What do you have in support of the opposite of what you're perceiving, thinking, feeling? Same thing. What's the opposite?
Absolutely. And not assigning as much meaning to the thought being a fact.
Yeah, another example of don't believe everything you think.
100%.
Disqualifying the positive. So this is one that I had to work on for a very long time, and still do, in some cases. Recognizing only the negative aspects of a situation while ignoring the positive. Sometimes this is cognitive bypassing. You might receive many compliments on an evaluation, but focus on a single piece of negative feedback. And that is kind of using one example of like anything negative that happened in your day and letting it cast too much of a shadow on everything else that you've done and experienced.
Yes. Yeah, that's something I also have to and continue to work on, is the constructive criticism. And here's the thing with me and criticism. I want to hear ways that I can improve. I don't want like a yes man, but
Right.
like for whatever reason, whenever I hear things that I can or need to improve on, it's not like that I get angry at that person and go like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm perfect. But I immediately feel this weight of like, oh God, I did it wrong and I look stupid. So I'm worried in some ways that it's a poor reflection on me. And so that's something I've had to work through with certain mantras of like, they're telling you this so that you can perform at your full potential. Like they're telling you this to help you. They aren't telling you this to make you feel stupid.
They're not devaluing you, right?
Exactly.
So I think that can be an easy thing to do too, is overvalue or devalue. That also ties directly into like all or nothing, 0 to 100, because those are the shortcuts to bypassing, recognizing the shades of gray and whatever else there is to appreciate. The other thing, like why these work, or why the evidence to support the rhyme, reason, rationale why these work, because if you're thinking about thinking, you're already slowing down. Like rhyme, reason, rationale for doing anything therapy wise, you're beginning to communicate safety to your potentially active or hypervigilant central nervous system in response to a perceived threat. And so the moment you're beginning to think about thinking and separate your feelings from your thoughts and consider cognitive distortions, you're already pausing, you're already slowing down, and that's like step one of self-soothing and calming those fight or flight symptoms.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of helps you pause and step back.
Yeah, exactly. You get a chance to reclaim the pen on the narrative, so to speak. Like who's telling the story, Do I have all the pieces?
Yes.
Emotional reasoning, the assumption. Wait, did I read that one already? Yeah, I read that one already. Disqualifying the positive, read that one. We're down to the last two. Okay, should statements. Okay, this is one I've said here plenty. Another one of the mantras, don't should all over yourself. Gets messy.
Yes,
the belief that things should be a certain way. I should always be perfect. No, you shouldn't. But you're also perfect as you are.
Yes. Absolutely.
You perfectly imperfect thing, But that's also like idealization of like always, or no, it's not idealization. What is it? Perfectionism. Perfectionism, like waiting until a certain set of circumstances feel right before doing the thing, which I think a lot of us with neurodivergent brains really struggle with accessing that motivation, because we tend to be really good at waiting for those Goldilocks circumstances to happen, so then we do want to do the thing.
Yep.
Whatever activity. Probably the thing that we're shoulding ourselves about doing.
Yep.
For me, it's usually laundry.
Oh my God, constantly. Yes, once I get all my laundry done and get all my hours and do this and this and this and this, it's over. I'll be full power.
They should call me back. I shouldn't have to always call them, kind of thing.
Exactly.
All or nothing thinking. So again, some of these I feel like they're a stretch or just repackaging a lot of the same idea, but still worth having. Thinking in absolutes such as always, never, or every. So again, dichotomous, black and white, however you want to interpret it. But I never do a good enough job on anything, which if you're listening, you're already hearing, oh, that sounds like overgeneralization. Which is, if you're hearing a connection between any one of these, good, because then that helps you better recognize if there is a cognitive distortion present. But I know there's more than these too. Yeah, Ace, I snoozed the. I used my last snooze earlier, so we can get through this one. We do have an ad break coming up. Kate, is there anything else you want to
Yeah.
add to this? Because I know this is non-exhaustive, but I feel like there's more like punched up. Got to make it sexy. There's other there are others that I feel like are pearls.
Oh, jeez.
If you think we covered it, cool.
Yeah, I can't think of any more, at least off the top of my head.
How much more time you got? It's already getting close to 8.
Oh, yeah. I'm wondering if maybe after commercial, maybe I do like a little, if anyone has any general therapy practice questions for like 10, 15 minutes, I'd be happy to answer. And then
Sure.
I think I'll call it a day.
Okay. I was gonna see if you wanted to kind of get a little more into EMDR, help anybody understand that, but I choose your own adventure here if you want to take a little Q&A. I don't know, I kind of like that because it seems like anytime I've done any kind of like staff education with like a facility or whatever, the last 15 minutes is a Q&A. Like we got time for 2 or 3 questions and then we got to scoot.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, during that question time, it can absolutely be about EMDR. I'm happy to answer anything. And if any of you have questions about EMDR or the process, feel free to send me a DM or message me. I'd be happy to point you to some resources.
Yeah, we'll resource you up. All right, 3 minutes of ads coming up like in seconds. We'll be on mute. We'll be back in 3 minutes. So tune your tingles, scan your body meat, give yourself what you need. If it's more of us, awesome. See you in 3 minutes.